Distinguished participants, INFOSAN members, dear colleagues in the Republic of Korea, and FAO and WHO colleagues, welcome to this day 2 of the INFOSAN regional meeting with members in Asia. We would like to start again by thanking you very much for your time in joining us today. Again, we recognize this is a busy time and it's already a bit late for some of you, so we do appreciate it, and we hope that you're having also a good afternoon, good evening over there. With no further delay, I would like to start already with the session of the day. We are going to have an interesting agenda, an interesting program to discuss today. And we very much look forward to your active participation in this meeting. We would like to hear from you, your thoughts, and what are your inputs for this draft strategic plan and members guide for INFOSAN in Asia that we have developed. So for today, the general instructions are the same as yesterday. Please, we would appreciate if you keep your microphones mute. And if you have any questions, if you have any comments, we do encourage you to share this with us. Kindly do this by posting them in the chat box or also on the community website, and we will make sure that we read this. And in case you want to intervene using your voice, please raise your hand and we will give you the floor. So thanks again for following these instructions and for joining us today. We hope that we're going to have a very fruitful discussion today and fruitful meeting. So moving on to the content of the day, first we are going to hear from Dr. Eleonora Dupuy on the summary of the day 1, and then we are going to move forward onto the program as shared in the agenda. So we're going to have 2 sessions to discuss this draft strategy and members guide for INFOSAN in Asia. The first session will be for us and the INFOSAN Secretariat and also colleagues in the Republic of Korea to introduce this document and explain where this document is coming from and how it has been developed in conjunction also with INFOSAN members in all the region. We're going to then move forward to discuss this document together with the INFOSAN Secretariat and with some questions. So we do encourage you to share your voice here with us and let us know what you think. If you have any concerns, if you have any comments, this will be the moment for us to gather these comments so that we are able to finalize the document and share again with all members in the region. We're going to then have a coffee break or a pleasure break for 15 minutes, and we're going to come back to discuss a food safety topic, which would be foodborne disease surveillance. We'll have the pleasure to hear from different countries on national perspectives on foodborne disease surveillance. We're going to hear first from the Republic of Korea, then from Thailand and the Philippines. So we do appreciate very much all the support provided by these member states in the development of the session. And later, this will be followed by a panel discussion on the role of INFOSAN in foodborne disease surveillance with representatives from Bhutan, Japan, and New Zealand. And finally, once we're done with that section of the program, we're going to provide some closing remarks from the Republic of Korea, FAO, and WHO. So with that being said, I would like to stop sharing my screen and giving the floor to my colleague, Dr. Eleonora Dupuy from FAO for this summary of day 1. Thank you very much, Eleonora, for preparing this.
Distinguished participants, dear colleagues, good afternoon and good morning. I am pleased to present the summary of the day 1, in which during the just to check with Raul, would you share your screen or should I share my screen?
I think it would be better if you share your screen, Eleonora. In case this is, I think if this should be possible, your co-host.
Okay, so I will just open now the slides. And I push the sharing the screen. So you should see now. So yesterday, can you confirm that you see the screen?
Yes, we are able to see your screen. Thank you.
Okay. So thanks again, Raul, for this opportunity to present the summary of day one. So in the opening remarks and welcoming remarks, which have been presented by His Excellency Minister of Food and Drug Safety of the Republic of Korea, and also by the Regional Emergency Director WHO and the representative of FAO, Senior Food Safety Officer Markus Lieb, we have seen that the following highlights: food safety relevance for public health, food security, international trade, and the crucial role of communication through INFOSAN in food safety incidents and emergencies have been highlighted. The need to anticipate new food safety issues linked to climate change, and also considering increasing volumes of traded food makes also a connection through INFOSAN very important. It's important to prepare to quickly react to food safety incidents and emergencies. It was mentioned as well that COVID-19 is more than a health crisis. It is not a foodborne disease, however, it impacted food system, requesting new ways of work for food safety authorities to ensure food supply and safe food supply. Strengthening food chain monitoring and public health surveillance at country level has been highlighted, and also the need to exchange information and good practices. The importance to work together intersectorally was highlighted and stressed, and INFOSAN is an excellent, unique platform, a ground to support safer food for today and tomorrow. In the presentations, the key points from the presentations the keynotes from presentations include the following. New INFOSAN members and more countries in Asia have joined INFOSAN in 2020 and 2021, but still remain several member states that have not designated yet emergency contact points. There is increased number of countries notifying events to INFOSAN Secretariat, an increased number of notifications through INFOSAN in 2020 and 2021, which shows also the increased engagement of countries and also confidence and reliance on INFOSAN. Communication tools available through INFOSAN include new INFOSAN community website, monthly resource spotlight series, and also quarterly summaries, dedicated email boxes for emergency and non-emergency communication, which make possible as convenient ways to countries to choose and to communicate sustainably with INFOSAN Secretariat. The World Food Safety Day also have presented an opportunity to feature INFOSAN work and to present it globally. An overview presented on new features and functions of the new INFOSAN community website, and more events will follow for users how to use this new INFOSAN community website. The importance to regularly update and the contact details of INFOSAN members have been also underscored. New publications of INFOSAN in 2020 and 2021 include Members Guide and INFOSAN IHR communication template, as well as INFOSAN Community Activity Report, which members are encouraged to visit on the INFOSAN website. Capacity development carried out by INFOSAN included a large number of webinars, virtual simulation exercises, training workshops, and meetings. With less than 50% on-time responsiveness to the invitation or to the messages from INFOSAN Secretariat, there is need to enhance emergency contact points reactivity. It was discussed also yesterday the barriers for active participation in INFOSAN, and it was clarified that those barriers identified in 2019 are still valid. And new challenges for participation in INFOSAN and ways to address them we expect to emerge in today's session. I would like to thank you for your kind attention for this summary and give the floor back to Raul. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eleonora. Sorry, I was not able to unmute myself. Thank you very much for this summary, and we hope that it refreshed participants' minds and perspectives for today to be ready to discuss actually on the following session, which is the presentation of the draft strategy on members guide for INFOSAN in Asia. So I think we can move forward to this section, and for this I would like to first start by thanking everyone, all member states that have kindly supported us in the development of this document by providing feedback. We do appreciate very much all the comments provided, and we would also like to thank colleagues in the Republic of Korea for the initiative for the development of this document and all the support provided. For this session, as I said, it will be jointly presented by the Republic of Korea and the INFOSAN Secretariat. And I would like to welcome Chang Hwan Oh, who is an outside advisor to the Ministry of Food and Drug Safety in the Republic of Korea, and who will be doing this presentation on behalf of MFDS Republic of Korea. Then it will be on me, but now please, Chang Hwan Ho, if you can share your screen and unmute yourself for your presentation. Thank you very much again for all your support.
Thank you, Raul. Let me take the mic. Hi, everyone. This is Chang Hwan Oh, who is an outside advisor. I'm a professor of the Semyong University. It is my honor to join the 2021 Asia INFOSAN conference for the third time, following my participation in 2017 and 2018. I hope my Asia INFOSAN participation background could be helpful to strengthen the development of Asia INFOSAN. Okay, let me tell you that the content, what I'm going to talk about today is these two contents. The presentation starts with the background information, why MFDS suggested the development of an Asia INFOSAN guide to the INFOSAN Secretariat. And let me share a draft of Asia INFOSAN members guide. Then I will yield the floor to the INFOSAN Secretariat. As you could see, the food imports to Korea increased from the 28 trillion won in 2017 to 32 trillion won in 2020. In 2020, the imports of agricultural products, fishery products, and processed food amounted to as much as 18 million tons. The number of import declarations to Asian continent totaled 370,000. That's more than twice as many as Europe's 800,000. Asia also topped the list in terms of imports by weight and import amount. As the status of the food imports to Korea indicates, the trade volume between Asian countries has continuously increased, as the Asian countries are geographically close with each other and share the similar cuisines. Exchanging information between countries and the strengthening human networks are prerequisite for securing food safety. We recognize the need to develop detailed response strategies to ramp up the ability to respond to potential food safety emergencies in Asian countries. Okay, against this backdrop, the Korea suggested to INFOSAN Secretariat in March this year that a member's guide be issued to enable member countries to rapidly exchange information when the food safety accidents occur. While INFOSAN does, of course, have its own guide for the member countries as a whole, MFDS thought that it would be better to have an Asia INFOSAN members guide based on the existing guide, but specialized for the Asian regions. This is how MFDS began to make a draft. The early draft suggested by Korea was comprised of Asian INFOSAN structures and functions, the recommendations for the Asia INFOSAN members, and a way to exchange information when food safety accidents occur. After that, the INFOSAN Secretariat added specific details, including strategic plans. This is how the guide draft was initially made. Through our meaningful discussions, I hope this conference paves the way for us to issue an Asia INFOSAN guide, which will help us put concrete plans in place to secure food protection in a safer Asia. This is all for the background on planning the members guide for INFOSAN in Asia. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Chang-Wan Ho, for this background. Indeed, we were also very excited when we received this initiative from the Republic of Korea to develop this document. We've seen how this type of initiatives has worked very well in other regions, for example, in the region of the Americas, who are now the most active regions with regards to notification and response to INFOSAN incidents at the global level. So we do hope that this document will also help members in Asia to see how they can strengthen their participation and collaborate together to improve how they use INFOSAN during food safety emergencies. Now I will share my screen to provide a bit more on what happened once we received this document. Let me just okay. Are you able to see my screen now?
Yes, we can see it clearly.
Thank you very much. Okay, so first I would like to say, to start, and as Professor Chang-Wan Ho was saying, this document, there is indeed a members guide for all members of the network, not only for members in Asia. And there's also another document that's very important for us to keep in mind when we think about this strategic plan and members guide for Asia, which is the INFOSAN strategic plan for 2020-2025. And why is this? This is because basically the development of this new strategic plan and members guide for Asia is based on these two documents, meaning that the strategic plan and the strategic actions that are included in the document for members in Asia are based in the strategic plan and are based on the overall strategic plan from the INFOSAN Secretariat to achieve our mission, which is to basically exchange information during food safety emergencies and halt the burden of foodborne diseases overall at the global level. Of course, there's in this document, the INFOSAN strategic plan, there's also thematic areas as there are for the members in Asia. They are not the same in words, but they are inspired in the same sense. So in my following slides, we will see a bit more. And before that, I just wanted also to say that the INFOSAN Members Guide was basically the foundation of this new Members Guide for Asia. So there is nothing really different from what's included in the INFOSAN Members Guide, only for the INFOSAN Members Guide. Of course, for the strategic plan, this has been developed to be tailored for the context of Asian countries. So before I move on to how and what happened once we received this draft from the Republic of Korea, I would like to refresh your minds a bit on what's included in the INFOSAN Members Guide and also in the strategic plan, so that maybe this could also help you and motivate you to question yourself for the discussion section. First, as you know, the Members Guide was launched during the second global meeting of INFOSAN in 2019. For those that were there in Abu Dhabi, this was the time when we presented the document. And so the purpose of this is really for members to have a clear and common understanding of what their roles and responsibilities are with regards to INFOSAN, and also how INFOSAN operates overall with the exchange of information, urgent information, and how it also operates for non-urgent information. It also includes some further clarification as to what needs to be considered urgent information and what's to be considered non-urgent communications. And finally, it also provides guidance on how, when, and who needs to contact and notify the INFOSAN Secretariat whenever there's this type of urgent information that needs to be communicated to WHO. It's divided in two parts. The first one would be the one that describes all the roles and responsibilities that I was just saying. And the second part would be the operational part about replying all the questions that I was just raising, like who, what, when, and how for the notification of incidents. Then about the strategic plan, this was also presented in Abu Dhabi in 2019. And it has 6 strategic objectives, as I was saying. As I call them thematic areas, but they are called in this document strategic objectives. And so the first one would be to strengthen INFOSAN as a global network to detect and respond to international food safety emergencies. Apologies for this. And so that we reduce the impact on health of these type of situations, and also the impact on trade. The second one would be to keep developing INFOSAN as a network of networks, meaning that we connect all professionals from across the world, and also all the relevant sub-regional and local networks that work in a similar way as we do. The third one would be to use INFOSAN to bring together knowledge and experiences, so that we can then increase the capacity of food safety, not only for emergencies, but overall by sharing experiences. As yesterday I was also saying, and the Honorable Minister of MFDS was also encouraging us to work together in this regard. The fourth one is to facilitate increased information sharing, so that we can also use better the community website, which is new now. So we do encourage you to go there and start using it, and by doing this, developing your capacity to use this, and learning other colleagues in your country and in your region to use this very important tool. The fifth one is to boost the visibility of INFOSAN through proactive communication, and also to keep building on what we have already achieved by finding new sources of funding and opportunities, so that we sustain and expand the activities that we perform today. And the last one, the sixth one, is to gain better understanding, to keep gaining this type of understanding of what members understand it's important for them as INFOSAN members, what members perceive as a challenge for their participation in the network, and how we can overcome this type of challenges. This will help the INFOSAN Secretariat to prioritize the interventions that we need to do to support member states in this sense. So with this in mind, it was that we received the document. The document was sent, as it was mentioned earlier, in the second quarter of in the early second quarter of 2021. And once we received this document, we started developing a strategic plan based also on the members guide and on the strategic plan for INFOSAN. And we've shared this document, once we've updated this document, we've shared this document with all the member states in the region that are attending this meeting for input from their side. We provided all of you, with some time to review this document, and then we kindly ask you to share your comments and ideas on this document, how feasible you see that this could be implemented, what was missing. It was really an open time for you to just say if you agree, if you don't agree, what should be there, what shouldn't be there, how it should be there. And so thanks again to everyone that helped us with this. We received indeed very, very useful comments that we've included in the updated version, which was sent to you also yesterday after the meeting. So what was the main feedback from members? Of course, we received several comments, but I tried to summarize them in these 3 points. The first one was to include a timeline for the implementation of the strategic plan, because we didn't include one at first, but it's indeed something very important. And so we've decided that this timeline will be the same timeline as the strategic plan for the global strategic plan for INFOSAN, which is 2020-2025. In this case, it will be 2022-2025, which is 3 years. It makes sense. It's feasible, I think. So we've decided to implement, but you also can tell us what you think now during the discussion. We've also developed goals and outcomes as well as indicators for each of the strategic actions. This was also something that was mentioned by several of you, and it's also something very important. It was not that clear in the previous version. And lastly, it was to elaborate a bit more on the responsibilities under IHR. So how they coordinate and notify during emergencies, and what are their roles and responsibilities when working together for the report of this type of emergencies and incidents to the WHO. With this, I would like to briefly introduce the final structure of the document. I'm sure most of you must be already familiar with this structure. The document consists of 3 parts. Part A, which describes the structure and functions of INFOSAN members in Asia, providing a bit of background on how this was originated, the objectives of the document overall, and the INFOSAN network structure. During the document, we keep referring to the term Asia INFOSAN, which should not be mistaken as something, as a body itself. It's just a way to refer to INFOSAN members in the region. So this is really not a new secretariat or a new body that will take care of the incidents in Asia. It will still be the INFOSAN secretariat following the same rules under the INFOSAN membership and for INFOSAN management of incidents, as we would do for any other type of incidents in other regions. But we decided that we could name INFOSAN members in Asia as Asia INFOSAN to have the idea of having a team of colleagues in this specific region that would be working together to improve the way they collaborate and the way they participate in INFOSAN. Of course, we're also very open to your feedback, and we welcome your feedback on this regard. If you prefer to use a different term, please just let us know. Then for part B, this is the section where we describe a bit on the hows, who, when, for the communication of food safety incidents, how information should be shared through INFOSAN, how we can communicate with the INFOSAN Secretariat, and how we can report food safety incidents. This is very much based on the already existing members guide, and because, as I said, there's not a new body or not a new entity that will take care of the incidents. It will still be the INFOSAN Secretariat. So with this in mind, it would still be the same process for reporting food safety incidents. And finally, we include in part C the strategic plan in Asia with the challenges and actions, and as I was saying, for each of these actions, an indicator and an expected outcome. So I would like to go through the different parts. And for part A, as I was saying, we have the background. We have then the objectives, which I'm going to present now. The first one is to strengthen the INFOSAN membership across Asia INFOSAN, so meaning in Asia, in the member states that are attending this meeting, to build capacity to deal with food safety emergencies at the national level. The third one, to respond effectively to food safety emergencies at the international level. And the fourth one, to foster this community of practice with the INFOSAN community website. Finally, it also describes, as I was saying, the INFOSAN network structure, which is the same as what's described in the INFOSAN members guide. And this is why I've included this picture of the INFOSAN members guide in this slide. For part B, just want to say again that I really would like to clarify that there's not to be any confusion on this. We the INFOSAN Secretariat will still be the ones dealing with the notification of food safety incidents. So this is really just to consolidate the information in the document for members in Asia, and then think for the strategic plan on how we can develop strategic actions to encourage the notification, to encourage transparency of this type of situations at the national level, and really it's not to be confused with something different. Here again, this is why I've included the INFOSAN members guide in this slide. Finally, for the part C, so which is the strategic plan. For those 4 objectives that I've just presented, we've developed 4 thematic areas for the document. So they are, of course, based on the objectives. And the first one is develop Asia INFOSAN, so the INFOSAN membership in Asia. The second one, to build capacity for food safety emergency management. The third one, to respond effectively to food safety emergencies at the international level. And the fourth one, to develop the community of practice. So this exchange of information, this group of experts in a specific topic that will be exchanging knowledge and building capacity by doing this. For each of these thematic areas, as I was saying, we will find in the document challenges, key actions, indicators, and goals. So now let's look into each of these thematic areas. And the first one was, as I was saying, developing Asia INFOSAN. The main challenges for this specific thematic area is, and as Eleonora was saying, that several member states need to still designate or update, specifically for Asia, I think, focal points. We still have a couple of countries who don't have an emergency contact point, but this is not the few. But we do encourage those countries that still don't have an emergency contact point to do it. And in case you need to update the membership, please also let us know. And then the second challenge is that member states need to complement many times their membership at the national level. As I was saying, focal points in the region has been recognized as one of the issues. Some of the agencies or ministries that should be involved in the food safety emergency response are still to be identified and designated as focal points. This would also help you to move forward, as I was saying yesterday, into the development of a more comprehensive food safety emergency response plan. And so I'm not going to go in detail right now into the different indicators and the expected outcome of this, because I think it's very obvious. So I've included just here the actions that we are going to take from the INFOSAN Secretariat and also from the INFOSAN member side to address these challenges. And you can imagine, I will try to describe and be brief on what would expect the outcome be, which in this case, of course, would be to designate more emergency contact points and more focal points. So for this, both the INFOSAN Secretariat and the members will ensure that the membership is up to date, and the INFOSAN Secretariat will support the designation of memberships. We would also do this by increasing the number of trainings that are available for members. Many times it is through this type of national workshops that we are able to engage these other stakeholders that need to be involved. They many times don't even know about INFOSAN, and we are really happy to just have a 1 hour or 2 hour session with them, present the network and explain how they can contribute to the work that's been done. The second thematic area is responding effectively to food safety emergencies. The first challenge that was identified for this was that the great part of the incidents and emergencies that are reported in the region are not notified by the members in the region themselves, but are rather notified by other internal collaborations that we have here in INFOSAN. If you remember yesterday what my colleague Rochelle was showing in this slide of INFOSAN as a network of networks, we have different collaborations with different surveillance and management networks. So this is in many times the way in which we learn from this type of situation in Asia, and not directly by the members. As Rochelle was also showing yesterday, there are several countries that have delays with the acknowledgement of receipt of information requests, and also in providing requested information. I think from what we've seen, there might be a confusion sometimes, and member states wait until they have all the information to get back to us. We encourage you to just acknowledge receipt when we ask you to do it, and it's not necessary to wait until you have all the information to get back to us with the acknowledgement of response. Aside from that, of course, we understand that countries have different capacities and different processes for notifying and sharing this information. Many times you need to get clearance by different stakeholders. Many times you need to get approval by your managers. So on the provision of requested information, while we know that there's room for improvement, we also acknowledge that this could be tricky, and there might be more detailed analysis to do so that we can improve on that. But about the acknowledgement of response, really, there's nothing, like you can just say, yes, I received your email, and that's fine. For the third challenge, it's to try to not overlap with other regional networks. I saw yesterday one of the newly identified challenges was that there might be duplication of reports or duplication of information sharing to other channels. So I think this is also a great moment to think a bit more on how we can avoid this to happen, or how you are seeing this so that we avoid this to happen. From the side of what we can do, I think we are able to provide support with the implementation of the INFOSAN IHR communication protocol, which would address most of these challenges that we've just mentioned, by having in written a document that would provide guidance to the member states and at the national level what needs to happen and how it needs to happen when we detect or identify one of these emergencies. And of course, we are also aiming at having more trainings available for you on this specific document. We've already done this with some member states in Africa, where we go through the document with a now online session, and we help you to implement. And of course, the expected, in general, the expected outcome of this is to have a more responsive region that's able to report more proactively this type of situation, and avoiding overlap and duplication of responsibilities and tasks. The third thematic area, which is the building of capacity for food safety emergency management. First challenge is that there is unclear understanding across the region on the responsibilities and roles of INFOSAN members in relation with the IHR. We know that this also, it's a bit tricky and sometimes difficult to understand. We are also very happy to provide support on this, as I was saying, and also with the training on the IHR INFOSAN communication template. And the second challenge is to precisely mention that there are very few countries in Asia that we are aware, maybe there are more, that have implemented this INFOSAN IHR communication template. Here, again, the expected outcomes are quite similar, have more reports from members in the region and notifications of this type of situations. Also that we are able to assess promptly and in due time this type of incidents reported in the region, and to strengthen collaboration with the regional networks. And finally, the fourth thematic area, to foster the INFOSAN community practice. The main challenges is that despite we have launched this new tool, which is the new INFOSAN community website, this is still a bit underused. We know that this is new. We know that you need to get used to it. So we need to see how we can start encouraging you more and making it even more easier for you to use this tool. For this, the expected outcome is that we have an increased traffic on the INFOSAN community website from the region, that we develop specific trainings for the region, and that we continue organizing this type of regional meetings where we have the opportunity to listen from you. What are your issues? What are your needs? And how we can address them. So what's next with this document? We will now have a guided discussion that will help us to gather final comments from the members that are attending this call. And following the meeting, we are going to compile these comments and incorporate them into a final version, which will be again shared with the INFOSAN members. We will publish this document, of course, and we will monitor the progress also at the different regional meetings, so that we do a biannual or annual reporting of the situation, and we can explore how we are doing with the implementation of this document. We do expect that this document will I wouldn't say serve as a starting point, because this is already the 7th regional meeting that we have with members in Asia. And I am sure that many of you already are very aware and understand very well the role of INFOSAN, but it's certainly a common point for us all to have a common understanding and see how we can all work together, and how we can many times help ourselves and get help from the INFOSAN Secretariat to strengthen INFOSAN in Asia. With that, I finish my introduction of the document. If you have any questions, I think we can take some questions during the discussion session, because we are going to have around 50 minutes to discuss. So please don't hesitate to express your thoughts, to share your thoughts, your comments during this coming session. We are going to be here, all the INFOSAN Secretariat, both from WHO and FAO, to try to solve these queries, and also to gather your comments and thoughts. So we do encourage you to please be active in this upcoming session with the different questions that will be posed to you by my colleague Eleonora. Thank you very much. And I would like to then invite my colleague Eleonora Dupuy, again, Dr. Eleonora Dupuy, to share her screen if she has the personalized, which is my understanding, for this next session on the discussion of the draft strategy and members guide. Many thanks, Eleonora, for facilitating this section. And we will be here in case you have any questions. We also encourage you to put them in the chat on the community website, or just raise your hand if you want to intervene directly. Thank you very much, Eleonora. Over to you.
Thanks much, Raul, for this comprehensive introduction of the draft strategy and members guide for INFOSAN in Asia. So far, we have a solid already draft and solid how to say, it's option to go ahead. So and now we will step into discuss into the discussion how to further develop, enrich this draft. And so far, as mentioned by Raul, we received already comments from several countries, to which we are grateful. And here we put together, we grouped the comments according to the structure of the guide. So here on the screen, you have the comments which relates to the part A, INFOSAN Asia, INFOSAN structure and functions. And the comments which came from those who provided from countries includes the following. So there is a wish to, or a proposal to articulate more explicitly goals, outcomes, outputs of the strategic plan for Asia. Then also, as also Raul mentioned, it's important to frame the strategic plan either to 3 or to 5 years. This is up to you to decide. And maybe also it's an idea from one country to set a timeline for each action, for each activity. As you noticed in the previous discussion from Raul, he mentions that there are actions designed for INFOSAN members to be taken, and also actions for INFOSAN Secretariat. So let's think together about that. Then also a comment and a question came: is it possible, or maybe it is wished and it will be recommended, to set focal points at department level if departments deal with different sectors of the food chain, food systems? So meaning that having more than one focal point per agency in addition to emergency contact point. So this is also encouraged. In this case, more actors involved and responsible and with duties in food safety will be involved with information and communication and coordination. And also one very excellent proposal, it was that participation in INFOSAN network can be strengthened by bringing in policymakers. So far, the food safety authorities are as implementers of policies. So it's important to reach out to policymakers, to ministries, to those institutions which make policies and also decide maybe on the budget allocation for different country priorities. So this point is very important to consider. So we put also some questions here to also to boost the feedback and the participation. These questions are, for example, is Asia-INFOSAN same with INFOSAN members of Asia? So it was, Raul explains that it is not intended to make like a separate coordination body, but we would like to see active members of INFOSAN in all Asian countries. Then second question is how to motivate emergency contact points to actively participate in INFOSAN activities. This is a question for participants to provide their thoughts, to share their insights, their good practices they may have, and how can my institution contribute to raising awareness on INFOSAN among the food safety authorities in my country and engage more actively with INFOSAN. If to put, let's say, one keyword on this first session, we would call it maybe membership. Please think about the membership and responsibilities, roles, and I would open the floor for feedback from participants. Please feel free to share with us any insights, any ideas, any thoughts you may have. Who could be, in addition to what is already registered with as members in INFOSAN, what members would help to operate effectively INFOSAN at country level, and then how to motivate more active participation in INFOSAN activities. So the floor is yours. I would like, please raise the hand or write your proposal in the chat. Raul, it seems that the person who is sharing the screen do not see the the hand raised. Maybe you can help me with monitoring the hand raising.
Yes, yes, sure.
So I would remind just that this session is intended to have constructive discussion and open discussion, and we hope that that your thoughts, which you will be share, will be very helpful to enrich and to move toward the final version of the draft strategy and members guide for INFOSAN membership in Asia. Are there some thoughts for this first part A, INFOSAN structure and functions? Maybe we can use this session also to clarify the roles of IHR, national focal points, and emergency contact persons in INFOSAN, because this question about the membership and structure and functions have appeared in many instances. So maybe Raul, you can use this initial discussion to clarify first what would be the IHR and emergency contact point roles and what is different in these two positions.
Thank you, Leonora. I think we have one question before in the chat. It's can individuals other than ECP and focal points register to receive information? In principle, the INFOSAN network is restricted to national authorities that have a stake on food safety. So if these individuals are part of a national authority that works on food safety and can get these national authorities to designate them as focal points or emergency contact points, then they would receive the information. Fortunately, at this stage, we are not granting access to the community website or to the information that's shared through the network to external individuals, meaning people that are not working for a national ministry or a national agency. So, and this is, of course, something very important that we were also discussing yesterday and has to do a lot with the confidentiality and ensuring that the information that is communicated through INFOSAN is only shared with the relevant colleagues that are responsible of the risk management for in this case, international food safety emergencies. But of course, if you are able to get the designation from a national ministry or a national agency, we will be very happy to welcome you to the network. I think with regards to the specific strategic action and the thematic topic that covers membership, sometimes it's also true that it can be seen as a very difficult task from the bureaucratic side, meaning it's a long way to designate a new person. And for this, I would just like to clarify that it's not like that. It's quite straightforward. You can just contact the INFOSAN Secretariat at infosan@who.int. Let us know that there's been an update on the membership, and we will take care. From our side, we have also developed several tasks to try to identify inactive members. As we were saying, every year we go through all the membership. We check who has had access to the community website, who has replied to our messages, who hasn't gone onto the community website, whose emails are bouncing back, And so we really do an analysis of all the membership to try to identify all these issues, and we then follow up with member states individually to try to solve the situation. So we would really appreciate and encourage you to be responsive to these times in case by the INFOSAN Secretariat, and let us know whenever this happens. And as Francisco was saying yesterday, it's very important that you keep up to date your contact details on the community website, because this is our main source of information. And when I say our main source of information, I'm not only talking about the INFOSAN Secretariat, but as you know, there are several member states that do direct notification, meaning that they would notify directly the emergency contact point in the other member states that are involved in an export or an import or of a specific commodity, and they would alert them directly, copying the INFOSAN Secretariat of this type of situation. So it's really very important that you keep this in mind and that you help us to do this. We have another question. Is there a financing support commitment mechanism captured in the strategy? Not in this specific strategy for Asia. I think it would perhaps be interesting to see how we could also include this in the document for Asia. However, this is included, as I was saying, in the global INFOSAN strategic plan, where more information is detailed on how we are expecting to find and sustain funds for us to, as I was saying, continue with the activities that we are doing and expand for new ones. For this one, it could be interesting. And we could liaise it. We could link it probably with advocating for INFOSAN at the national level, or promoting INFOSAN at the national level, so that it gets more recognition at the national level. And by doing that, we could also try to identify some potential donors for the network that could help us to continue with our activities. So if you agree, let us know now if this makes sense. So what I've just said, please let us know in the chat if you would like to see this included, or if you think perhaps it's not needed.
Are there other questions, Raul?
No, not at this stage. These are the only two questions, but I would like to hear from the participants about what I've just said. Maybe you can also use the tools that are here available on Zoom, the reactions. If you agree on including the financial support commitment, you can say, I think there was a way to add like a cross or a tick. Maybe you can raise your hand, or
I could add, Raul, that in fact the operation of INFOSAN at country level is the duty, and the financial allocation is on the charge of the country budget. However, INFOSAN could support, as Raul said, with some advocacy and also with some trainings to enhance participation. So it should be considered like matching funds or matching approach to have funds enough, let's say, funds for the implementation of the plan, keeping in mind that the country also have its obligations, and then for some activities INFOSAN Secretariat could help as well, but not for the entire plan. And in relation to the first question about the membership, yes, yesterday also it was a question if individuals can participate, and Raul explained very well the limitations and the importance to keep confidentiality. And at the same time, it's as an entry point for deciding what members or additional focal points, additional institutions would qualify for INFOSAN members in each from each Asia country. It's also to think about the setting the multi-agency coordination group for emergency response, for food safety emergency response. That maybe there is rationale to include those agencies with specific roles in food safety emergency response if they are national institutions, then there is sense to encourage them to become members. So we then continue the discussion with these two elements, membership and finance to support implementation. So I return the floor to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Eleonora. We have a question from MFDS.
네, ECP 활동 독려를 위해서 일단 뭐 독려하는 방법에 대해서 좀 강구를 해봤는데요. 일단 뭐 어렵겠지만 WHO 총회 등에서 인포산에 대한 그런 정보 공유가의 중요성에 대해서 지속적으로 한두 번이 아닌 지속적으로 좀 강조하면 좀 좋지 않을까 생각이 들고요. 두 번째로는 이런 좀 인포산 활동을 정말 열심히 하는 그런 국가에 대해서 어렵겠지만 어떻게 하면 좀 더 그런 인센티브를 줄 수 있는지에 대해서도 좀 생각해 보는 게 좋을 것 같습니다. 이상입니다.
Thank you very much for this comment. I think it's great and indeed something very, very important for the network, and this way in which we can also learn from other national experiences and what other countries are doing is a way in which we can actually encourage overall, for example, a region on strengthening their participation in the network. I think that in the region, for example, we have a great example from Australia and also New Zealand. Maybe we have others. If I am missing someone, please let me know, who are doing this direct notification. And this really helps a lot the work that we are doing by alerting other member states whenever they export or import a product that has been recalled. In Australia and New Zealand, they would alert these other member states so that they can take action. And this has allowed also the INFOSAN Secretariat to take action in many times and seek further import or export of these products that have been recalled. And this has allowed that we share this information many times and identify further distribution of the products and share this information with other member states. So it's indeed something that we could perhaps include in here, showcasing maybe this type of experiences of ways of working. Maybe we can include this in the strategy somehow and have dedicated sessions with this type of member states that can help others to see how they can move forward. This could also work in some type of twinning or body system where we twin or we put together a country that's more advanced with a country that's not as much as advanced. So this could also be included in this way. And not to forget that we this year implemented the INFOSAN Train the Trainer, and we have the great participation from Yen from Bhutan, who is now INFOSAN expert in the region and who can also help us to portray this type of very good experiences and disseminate this information with all member states in the region so that they know what others are doing and they can think at least not to do the same because everyone is different, right? And one size doesn't fit all, but to make us think how we can work together. So I think this is a great point. We can also include it. And if there's other comments on what I just mentioned from member states, please feel free to put them in the chat. I think someone was trying to say something.
I think the proposals made just now, it's a very good one for even for the work plan of the INFOSAN Secretariat for the further biennium, let's say. It's sharing experience, maybe on some topical thematic issues targeting in interest of countries. That would be good also to know what specific questions countries may have and may need the exchange of experience. So, Raul, do you see further questions or further other hand raised?
Not from my side. So maybe we can move to part B, perhaps, and then we will see if there's comments on this.
Okay, thanks, Raul. So we will move to the part B. There's an issue with moving. I don't know why it's not. Okay, so the part B is about communication during food safety incidents. And one comment received from country is that the INFOSAN strategy should encourage member states to enhance transparency on information sharing as it involves food safety and response to protect public health. And in this relation also some connected questions are, for example, are there specific challenges with information sharing between Asian countries? If so, what would be the way to overcome the challenges for information sharing? Then another question would be how to make a standard practice the information sharing and notification of food safety incidents with INFOSAN Secretariat. We have mentioned that in the last 2 years, the notification to INFOSAN have much increased, but still there is a need for even more, let's say, openness to share with INFOSAN Secretariat the information about the ongoing or emerged food safety incidents or event. Another question which we invite to think about is, should food fraud events involved in international trade be notified to INFOSAN? Any new ideas in this respect also is very welcome. Another question, should domestic food safety incidents be notified to INFOSAN? We mentioned about this yesterday, but would like also to see a confirmation and to entrust you that this is a way to proceed in order to anticipate that domestic and local, let's say, food safety event spreads and extend to other areas. Another question which you may think about is about it, and countries also raised, is my country's food safety system reputation at risk if to notify events through INFOSAN? I think Raul can bring explanation about that. And what is the linkage between INFOSAN and IHR? What is the difference in their role related to food safety events? This is also part of the questions related to duplication of role. So far, there is no duplication of role, but the clarity maybe also it's needed so that each member is clear with what action should be taken and when. And another question, this is like a context question. Do INFOSAN expect to see a continuation in the rise of incidents going forward? This question relate to the fact that there is global trends like increasing rise in population, in number of population, also rise in food demand, rise in international food trade, and these let's say trends and mega trends, they are linked with more traded food and also more let's say opportunities for food safety incidents. Therefore, the role of INFOSAN is expected to grow, and it's important that countries learn how to engage with INFOSAN, and also not to have concerns about reputation, because INFOSAN is acting on confidential basis and only in agreement with country, in coordination of messages which should go to other countries. So this is a little bit of background to this question about communication during food safety incidents. So I give the floor for questions and comments from participants. Thank you. So as a keywords for to trigger, let's say, your thinking or more focused thinking, it's would be response capacity, also food safety emergency management, and food safety risk communication.
Thank you, Leonora, for this specific set of questions. I think that the most important for member states attending this meeting is to reflect on the thematic topics that I mentioned, number 2 and number 3, which are on responding effectively to food safety emergencies and also on building capacities. So if you, from what I presented on the challenges, if you see that there's other challenges that haven't been identified in the guide, in the strategic plan and the members guide for Asia, this would be the moment for you to let us know if you see that there's challenges that have not been included. I think there's a question from MFDS.
This is Professor O. I have some question about the part B. I'm wondering, there is some standardized format to report of that food incident matter, like some kind of Excel format or something like that, and to transfer that information more effectively and faster. I think the standardized reporting format should be prepared. I think INFOSAN might have it already. So I'm wondering that you have it or not.
Thank you very much for this question. It's indeed worth thinking now if we need to strengthen what's been done in this regard to develop a specific format or a specific template that member states can use to report this type of food safety emergencies. Right now, we have one, which is the one that's included on the INFOSAN community website. When you try to create an incident, or report an incident to the INFOSAN Secretariat, you will be asked to fill a form with the relevant information. And in there, there's the different fields that would ask you to provide us with a bit of information on the type of incident that you are willing to report. However, I think that right now it's not mandatory to use this template or to communicate or notify this type of incidents through the community website. Is an optional thing. And one thing that perhaps is also worth discussing right now is see how useful other member states see these, acknowledging that the nature of food safety emergencies can be very, very different, and one template might not fit all type of situations, and maybe this could eventually also cause some delays in the reporting, because member states would be a bit preoccupied on having all the information contained in the specific template to report, to then send it to the INFOSAN Secretariat. So maybe it's a good moment for us to hear if member states think that this could be useful, if you think that this could not be useful. And I think in any case, we already do have something which is on the website, but if you would like us to prepare or include in this strategic plan such a template that could facilitate the notification from member states in Asia, please let us know in the chat what you think about this. In the meantime, we have one question comment from Sam from Australia, and then we have another question from MFDS. The question from Sam from Australia: if fruit fraud events were to be notified to INFOSAN, we would need an agreed set of definition terms that all members can use. This is also very important, so I think this is definitely something worth mentioning in the strategic plan. When we touch on the response to food safety emergencies, we always have this concern about food fraud and what needs to be notified and what doesn't need to be notified. And this is something perhaps that would need a bit more of thought on how and where we could incorporate in this document. But just out of my mind right now, we need to remember that the threshold for us to take action would be if there's an impact or a potential impact on international public health from a food safety incident, in this case, a food fraud situation. So we know that food fraud could be from mislabeling, where something is not correctly mentioned, and this could not necessarily be as dangerous or pose a risk to populations consuming this product, to something that could be more elaborated and that could potentially cause harm to public health. Right now, the way in which the Secretariat is dealing with this is we only act on food fraud situations when there's an evident risk of impact on international public health. This could be, as I was saying yesterday, an example, and more onto the food crime field. This falsified alcoholic beverages. This would be like a very extreme situation. Another one could be mislabeling of allergens, which right now is also gaining a lot of attention and has also been discussed at Codex. The allergens that should be considered as a danger to health. So we are right now considering those also for assessment of INFOSAN incidents and to alert other member states of this type of situations. So that could be all. Of course, there's also this sense of whenever there's a food fraud or missing label, then we are not sure if the whole process was followed in like as it should be, and if the good manufacturing practices were implemented, if there were protocols of safety that were followed. There's a lot of questions, but because of our capacity right now of assessing and dealing with the different situations, perhaps it would be a bit more realistic to keep on moving with this approach that we are doing, and only dealing with this type of food fraud situations whenever there's a high chance that there will be an impact or an evident impact on international public health. I hope this clarified the situation, and we are also happy to hear from you. This is the moment for you to talk. I'm only bringing a bit more of ideas for you to reflect and let us know what you think and see how and where we can include this. from what I'm seeing, I think that we have a couple of comments that it will still be worth including in the, of course, including in the document and resharing again with you for further review. And you let us know if you agree with our proposals. So I think a lot about me. Over back to MFDS who have some question.
그 한국 20기 위해정보과장 김나란입니다. 예, 오 교수님께서 전에 말씀하셨듯이 그 통일된 포맷이 있어야 된다고 생각하는 이유가 식품에 대한 정보에 대한 그런 식품 유통이 상당히 빠르기 때문에 여기에 대해서 빨리 처리를 해야 된다는 그런 부담감이 있습니다. 그래서 지금 인포산을 통해서 정보를 받고 있지만 정보의 범위가 너무 작은 경우가 좀 많습니다. 그래서 최소한의 정보, 뭐 제품명이라든가 제조번호, 그리고 그 부적합 사유, 그리고 부적합 기준, 그리고 뭐 또 그 검출량이 얼마인지 이런 최소한의 정보를 그런 아까 말씀하신 통일된 포맷에 담아서 국가별로 제공을 하면은 좀 더 빨리 문제가 된 그런 식품에 대해서 처리를 할 수 있을 것 같습니다. 그러니까 제 제안을 좀 드립니다.
Thank you very much for these comments. I think these are very, very useful. I'm looking right now at the format that exists on the INFOSAN community website, and I think that indeed there's a bit of information that, as you were saying, could be included in this format, so that we make sure that you receive minimal information that will allow you to take action. So perhaps what we can do is we can either share this in the next version of the guideline, meaning the current status of the form. You can have a look at it and you let us know if you would like to see a bit more information. However, keeping in mind that many times we would need to wait for other member states for them to gather this information to be able to share it. So in some situations, it's not that they don't want to share it, or that the Secretariat is not sharing it in due time. It's more that they are still gathering the situation, and we are only notifying you at a very early stage so that you can also try to do as much as possible with the information that's available at that point. But I think it's a very fair point that we can still work together and see what other member states also think, and see how we can improve the current version that we have, and how we can use it further, because this will also be part of using the INFOSAN community, the new INFOSAN community website. We have another question from Professor O from MFDS. Perhaps we can take this question and then we move to part C so that we cover all of the sections. Thank you very much for your questions.
Thank you for giving me the chance to ask one more thing. Actually, it is not the question, it's a kind of a suggestion. Actually, the reason that we are making the INFOSAN in Asia, Asia-INFOSAN, is that to strengthening and making faster communication between the Asian countries. In my experience, for the communication between the nations, I think two things maybe need to be harmonized. The one thing is that there are many foods, cuisines in the Asia regions, but the name and the criteria, etc., is different in each country. But finally, when I take a look at that, that is similar with one cuisine in my country like that. So the name of cuisine or some materials, the name must be harmonized. The second one is I'm teaching that about the food and food additives. I had a chance to take a look at the list of the food additives in Vietnam, but I got in trouble to harmonize that the name of that the food additive used in my country. I think that it might be same, but the name or criteria was different. So the cases of the food outbreak it came from that the food additives like the ethylene oxide. The case was provoked by the the food additives. It was reported by one country in Europe, and so that name or criteria or usage of that food additives used in Asian countries must be harmonized, because the Asian countries, not many countries are making the good list or usage list of that food additives well. So that kind of thing should be, more making the more elaborated and harmonized in the Asia section. I think that must be a way of making that more fast and clear communication between the Asian countries. Thanks.
If I may, I would respond to this proposal that it's indeed a great proposal, and so far all FAO and WHO members have a great benchmark to standardize and to harmonize the definitions and terminology, which are codex terminology. So we have a common denominator, which are codex standards, and as you know, as a Codex Committee on Food Import and Certification System, CCFIX, they are working on defining what, for example, food fraud is, and the Codex Committee on Food Additives have also the list of the active substance in different food additives, which is also standardized, and it's a good idea to put this encouragement or reference to remind countries that for harmonization purpose they should refer to Codex standards, so that all speak the same about the same thing, and there is better communication and better understanding. So this is about definitions of food fraud and food additives. So let's use more actively and better the available Codex standards. Another comment which I would like to make also about the template, I think this it's a great proposal also for standardization and to make the collection of information more, also to support what kind of information would be useful at the outset of a food safety event. And there are also many, let's say, good practices in this sense, starting with IHR template, but also, for example, we can make also reference to ICAN, RASF notification and information template, and from other rapid alert systems. So this is really a good proposal to look to have a harmonized and well-thought set of information which countries should collect to facilitate the effective communication, food safety communication. And with this, we can then pass to the last section of the draft guide for the sake of time, so that we hear also your reactions and proposal. And so the part C of the draft strategy and members guide for INFOSAN in Asia is devoted to challenges and actions. And here you have, for your information, the comments which have been provided by countries which have reviewed already the draft. For example, there is a proposal that the commitment for involvement in INFOSAN work may be strengthened with national guidelines and rules for communication and cooperation in INFOSAN. So this is a proposal to consider. Indeed, guidelines, global, regional, and national, they all are helpful, and if they are, there is a feeling that this will help, so this should be really taken on board. And then another issue about the supportive actions is to have organized at least one annual meeting of emergency contact point and focal points at national level in order to keep the focal points across institutions updated and in the loop on INFOSAN matters. Is also a very good suggestion. And also another suggestion, which also is very practical, is to devise a one-page policy brief on INFOSAN with an illustration or a graphic, a scheme to facilitate the communication and advocacy on INFOSAN for policymakers. And so the questions to you is, what actions could help connect sustainably the membership of INFOSAN in Asia to INFOSAN, to global INFOSAN? So the floor is yours.
Hi, my name is Sujin Kong from Director of International Cooperation Office in MFDS. My question is kind of different from previous ones. I just wonder that INFOSAN think about collaboration with free trade agreement framework. Recently, regional comprehensive economic partnership agreement is ratified in Korea. That agreement involves 15 countries. 14 countries of 15 countries are members of INFOSAN in Asia. And this agreement has particular articles with regard to food safety. And under this agreement, RCEP, importing country is required to notify exporting country about their food safety emergency measures. And also, exporting country are required to notify the importing countries about their food safety matter, a substantial change in food safety matters. So those requirements are kind of obligation. And in particular, these articles allow the member country to use their own contact point, and at the same time, the member countries can use already established communication channel. And I think this INFOSAN channel, INFOSAN in Asia, can be an already established communication channel for the food safety matters. If we can connect this INFOSAN network and also implementation framework of FTA like RCEP, I think in that way we can make more strengthened commitment for involvement in INFOSAN for Asian countries, and also we can connect substantially in Asian regional trade network to INFOSAN. So how about this idea? I just make a suggestion.
I think this is an excellent idea, and the new INFOSAN community website can accommodate, let's say, creating of the INFOSAN Asia community as a working group, as a let's say dedicated group to exchange information, which can be further connected to the global let's say network. But the possibility to have INFOSAN Asia members communicating amongst them on a trustful and confidential platform is already an asset, and it's good to use. And indeed, we have to align and keep the pace with reality and with the imperative of each day. And these regional economic agreements have to be part of equation. We definitely have to look into supporting the implementation of the regional agreements and obligations. Over to you. Thanks again for the great proposal. Raul, do you see some hands raised?
No, I think there's no other hands raised. I think probably there was another question from FDS, as I've just heard that the microphone was activated. And yeah, there's a hand from Malaysia. So
yes, Mr. Moht Salim, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. We'd like to thank INFOSAN Secretariat and Republic of Korea for your effort in developing the draft strategy and members guide for INFOSAN in Asia. Malaysia has no objection on this draft proposal actually, in view to based on the need of the ASEAN member state. Malaysia also note that the key indicators in the Part C on foster the ASEAN community of practice stated that regional meeting of Asia-INFOSAN will be organized annually. In view that there is already a platform to existing meeting for ASEAN members, for example, is CC Asia, where we are of a view that such arrangement could be made for the meeting to be held together back to back with the related existing meeting. This would also facilitate members in attending the meeting in view of the limited resources or maybe fund that we are talking just now. We would like to suggest maybe INFOSAN Secretariat can make some arrangement in terms of having the meeting with other existing platform. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mohsalid. This is indeed a great proposal, and we will consider it and think how to optimize the meetings and also to get best of resources and time when different food safety dedicated meetings are organized in the region. Thank you. Any other thoughts from participants about how to foster the INFOSAN community of practice, and particularly to facilitate the communication and participation in INFOSAN from Asian countries?
Thanks, Eleonora. Perhaps if there's no further questions, we can close this session and continue with the program, so that we don't have any delays. But however, we would like to still encourage you to keep reflecting on what we have been discussing during the last hour, and share with us any further comments that you might have. I think that we've taken note of all of your comments, and we are going to prepare a new revised version that we will share with you, and we will then redistribute it with all the member states and seek final approval for us to move forward with this document. Over to you, Leonora, to close this session. And
yes, thanks much, Raul, and thanks much all participants, distinguished participants, and also Ministry of Food and Drug Safety, who proposed many suggestions on how to complement and further enrich the guide, draft strategy and guide, members guide for INFOSAN in Asia, including also reflection on further to devote thinking about standardizing reporting format from member states, also encouraging to standardize also the terms and definitions used. Also, it was proposed to use INFOSAN platform also to support the implementation of regional economic agreements, the obligation under these agreements, and also a great proposal to think about how to optimize and to make best use of time and back-to-back meetings from different networks and regional bodies. With this, I would like to thank again all, and to close this session. We will be in contact with you through emails and also through the INFOSAN community website, where you can post as well your further thoughts. Thanks a lot. Over.
Thanks very much, Eleonora, again for your support in this session. And with this, I think we can have a 10-minute break, perhaps, if this works fine for organizers. And we'll be back with the National Foodborne Disease Surveillance perspective. Thank you then, and see you soon.
Thanks.
Hello again, dear participants, and welcome back. Let me share my screen. So for this second and final part of the meeting, and as you can remember from the program that I showed at the beginning of the session, we are going to hear from 3 member states on their national perspectives on foodborne disease surveillance. We're going to hear from Republic of Korea, Philippines, and Thailand, and then we're going to hear from the panel discussion on the role of INFOSAN on foodborne disease surveillance. I will introduce the countries once we reach the panel there. In the meantime, I would like to thank again all the speakers for this session, for their time and dedication for the preparation of the slides. We hope that all member states will, and we are sure that all member states will find this information very useful. So I would like to welcome Jin-Sung Kim from the Republic of Korea, who is a senior scientific officer from the Ministry of Food and Drug Safety, to start with the presentation on behalf of the Republic of Korea authorities. And thank you very much. I will stop sharing my screen.
Yeah. Thank you for the introduction. Hello, everyone. I'm Jin-Soo Kim from the Foodborne Disease Prevention and Surveillance Division in the MFDS in Republic of Korea. I'm so delighted to have this opportunity to discuss the foodborne disease policy of many countries as a person in charge of managing foodborne disease. I'll firstly explain the Korea's policy aimed at managing the prevention of foodborne disease, followed by the current status of the above matter. Let me first describe the overall approach to foodborne disease management in Korea. I classified our policy to prevent foodborne disease into 3 categories: a step toward preventing, stopping, and finding the illness. In Korea, pan-government meetings are held 3 times a year, and each ministry shares the situation related to food poisoning prevention and management. Relevant ministries cooperate with each other to conduct periodic inspections, centering on group cafeterias where many patients with foodborne disease. To manage the restaurants where foodborne disease incidence is high, our focus is on preventing the disease by introducing projects such as the hygiene grade certification system for restaurants and food safety culture development project. In addition, we are carrying out a norovirus surveillance system to manage the use of groundwater facilities. On top of that, we are also providing a food poisoning prediction service based on the statistics on food poisoning outbreaks for the people. The policy to stop foodborne illness includes an early warning system and an investigation of the causes. I'll tell you the detail in the latter part of the presentation. The Korea Integrated Pathogen Information Network and the whole genome sequencing analysis are good examples following the step toward the fine procedure. Foodborne disease management is not confined to the MFDS. Ministries and local governments, including the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of National Defense, the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Food and Rural Affairs, and the Ministry of Health and Welfare, gather 3 times a year to discuss measures to prevent and manage foodborne disease. We are carrying out promotion and education activities for foodborne disease at the pan-ministerial level, which is the main part of the prevention policy. With an annual budget of $900,000, we promote the 3 rules for food poisoning prevention, which are washing hands, drinking boiled water, and eating cooked food. Also, we are adopting different promotion strategies by class and developing various promotional content. Firstly, I'll tell you about the policies regarding foodborne disease prevention. A hygiene grade certification system for restaurants has been implemented since April 2017 with 20% of our total budget. We have designated 21,000 Korean food restaurants and franchise coffee shops and bakeries to apply the system and are planning to gradually expand the number to 35,000 restaurants by 2025. The grades are classified into 3 levels: excellent, very good, and good. And the Korea Agency of Health Accreditation and Service is in charge of evaluation. I'll talk about the Food Safety Cultural Development Project, which the MFDS has conducted since 1982. It has been in the spotlight since the pandemic as daily quarantine measures became all the more important. Providing a plate rather than sharing food on one plate and wrapping leftovers are two huge accomplishments which are now regarded as normal practice in restaurants. We are pushing forward with the project in tandem with daily quarantine measures, including social distancing, taking food out, and wearing masks during the pandemic. The next project is a seasonal project, a norovirus mitigation project. Norovirus-driven foodborne disease occur frequently in winter. We provided underground sanitation devices to school, social welfare facilities, other NGOs, and military camps between 2012 and 2013. Recently, we are operating a kit support project in order to prevent secondary infections at food service establishments, which include providing vomiter screen-up kits and self-diagnosis kits. In addition, we are responding at the pan-ministerial level to prevent and mitigate food poisoning disease by operating an all-time surveillance system to mitigate norovirus foodborne disease, organizing a governmental committee on the control of foodborne disease, and holding talk 3 times a year. We provided the public with the food poisoning prediction map to see the potential risk of foodborne disease throughout the country. This service utilized the past temperature and the level of humidity and that of the domestically acquired foodborne disease cases. We are operating an early warning system involving food service establishments. When food poisoning occurs at one food service establishment, we warn other food service establishments that are tied with the suppliers that supply food ingredients to the affected food service establishment, so that no additional cases will happen. Schools are all connected with our system, and we are encouraging other food service establishments like companies to enroll the above system. On top of that, we are strengthening the ability for nimble response by carrying out simulation training for those in charge of food safety from local governments. We are operating rapid test vehicles, including 5 buses and 2 trucks, which enable rapid investigation on pathogens at the site of food poisoning occurrences. They play a role in tracing contributor foods and blocking the further distribution of those contributor foods. Excellent cases using rapid test vehicle were highly recognized by foreign officials as food and beverage safety was swiftly managed during international conferences. Now let me tell you about the current situation of food poisoning in Korea. Recent statistics indicate that there has been repetitive patterns of increase and decrease in the number of cases. If you look at the graph, food poisoning is at 2020 hit a record low of 164 cases with 2,534 patients. With the growing increase in individual hygiene, such as washing hands due to COVID-19, the number of cases decreased by half of the before 2019 level. While food poisoning occurs throughout the year, it tends to increase the most during the period between August and September. The number of patients per 1 million people dropped to below 100 in the last 2 years. However, given that the US and EU almost always record below 100 patients per million, I believe we need to make more efforts. Look at the patterns of food poisoning by facility over the past 5 years. About 60% of food poisoning accidents cases in Korea occur in restaurants. Food poisoning accidents that occur in food service establishments such as school account for less than 20% of all cases, but only 48% of total patients. It is a relatively large percentage. The main causative pathogens are in the order of norovirus, enteropathogenic E. coli, salmonella, and campylobacter jejuni. Vegetables were the top causative foods, followed by egg and seafood. In Korea food, even at one meal, we eat a variety of side dishes made with various ingredients. Therefore, it is more difficult to find the causative ingredients. Anyway, we are trying to increase the identification rate of causative food for effective food poisoning prevention. Our division's name is the Foodborne Disease Prevention and Surveillance Division. As our names say, we are very committed to the prevention of foodborne disease, but we always feel as if we are walking on very thin ice because there is always a potential risk for mass food poisoning. I think those in charge of food poisoning across the globe would feel the same. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senior Scientific Officer Jin-Suk Kim, for this very, very illustrative presentation on the work that the Republic of Korea is performing for the surveillance of foodborne diseases. I think it's been very interesting to see also the impact of COVID-19 in the trends. And as you mentioned, I think that the only way forward is collaborating together, national authorities with the international level, and see how we can strengthen the work that has been done so far. Thank you very much for your presentation. I think we can move forward to the next speaker, who is from Thailand, Dr. Sutida Mangnoi Charoen. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. from the Ministry of Public Health. Sutida works at the Department of Disease Control in Thailand's Ministry of Public Health. So over to you, Dr. Sutida, and thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you. I would like to check whether everyone have hear me well.
Yes, we are able to see your screen and hear you well.
Okay. First of all, I am delighted to be invited to give a presentation on behalf of Thailand to share the perspective of disease surveillance on foodborne illness in my country. First of all, let me give you an overview of how Thailand has monitored to foodborne illness events and also the gastrointestinal infection. So this has been done through both passive and active surveillance. As you can see, there are mainly 3 surveillance systems in our country. First of all is the National Notofable Disease Surveillance, also called the R5OC surveillance system. So this one is the Syndromic passive surveillance system, including 85 notifiable disease, also covering the disease on the right, which is acute diarrhea, cholera, dysentery, food poisoning, enteric fever, and also other infectious pathogens. But this is actually the syndromic surveillance. So when the case appear at the hospital, the information will be shared through the system, which I will explain further in the next slide. The second surveillance system is actually the event-based surveillance system, which will serve the purpose of monitoring any outbreak going on in countries. And so the patient's detail and also their risk history will be shared through online database. And this will include the laboratory testing results from that isolating from patients and also environmental samples. And lastly, the laboratory surveillance system, which has been developed to actively monitor the trend of the certain specific viral pathogens. As you can see, it covers rotavirus, norovirus, astrovirus, adenovirus, and also sapovirus. So this will require the cooperation from network hospital in countries. Okay. So for the first one, the National Notofable Disease Surveillance System, any hospital or local health office that receives the patients who experience any symptom or clinical signs and risk history that fits to one of the notifiable disease. In this case will be any like food poisoning or acute diarrhea. They will have to report the detail of patients to district health office at the district epidemiology center, and the data will be submitted to provincial health office to overlook and assess the situation, and also give back and advice and on any impromptu control measures that the local health office will have to take. Only any other submissions for laboratory testing, and also it's going to be two-way communications among these offices. And follow from the previous slide, the situation from the provincial health office, or the epidemiological unit will further report to the regional disease control center and also division of epidemiology. And if there are any illness that pose a threat internationally, the International Health Regulation Focal Points, IHR focal points, as a division of epidemiology will report to WHO through existing channel. And this diagram explains how the information regarding health threats or any other public health emergencies, including food safety, is one of the important and priority area that the information will share with the international partners. And as you can see in this slide, is that for food safety, it involves several multi-sectoral and multi-agency in both Ministry of Public Health and also include outside Ministry of Public Health. But for Ministry of Public Health, there are several organizations, including Bureau of Food Safety, Extension and Support, FDA, Department of Health, Department of Disease Control, with Division of General Communicable Disease and Division of Epidemiology, where I'm coming from, and also Department of Medical Science and etc. And you can see that the multi stakeholders that will play part on this area. Coming back to the surveillance system, which I laid out earlier, the event-based surveillance system in Thailand, similar to the national notifiable case report disease, the first responder or the local health staff at the district health office or the local health hospital. So this team is called SRT, stand for Surveillance Rapid and Response Team. But instead of reporting a case base, so this one would be any abnormal events regarding foodborne illness, acute diarrhea, and also rumors from news, social media that will be reported through this online channel. So this information will be shared to responsible staff at the provincial and regional level. We will call this team Situation Awareness Team, in shortened SAT, SAT, where they will verify the event and also give it back to the local SRT. And the SAT team at the provincial or regional level will key in the information to the event-based surveillance database. And the SAT team at the central level who will overlook the report events on a daily basis will assess whether these incoming events fit the criteria for notifying the director. We will call this the CIR criteria. The information will be shared further with relevant stakeholders, and then the SAT team will also share this to the investigation team if it fits the criteria on disease investigation or any other further action that needs to be done. And these are certain criteria on when the investigation team at different levels will respond to the events and conduct any other further investigation. So it will be at, like I say earlier, either local health office or sub-district level, provincial, regional, and national level. And each criteria are actually specific to each illness. For example, acute diarrhea, food poisoning, dysentery, cholera, and botulism. And so all this information will be updated in the outbreak surveillance program. This will include the investigation form, investigation report, and all laboratory results. And this is the example of the investigation form that designed for the acute diarrhea, dysentery, where the epidemiological units at local and or the provincial level will have to fill in and report to Division of Epidemiology. And this is the monthly number of cases of acute diarrhea from our 506 report in the year 2020 and this year compared to the 5-year median. And as you can see that there seems to be no seasonal trend for acute diarrhea, and the number of cases in 2020 and 2021 seems to be lower than 5-year median. And in 2021, up until now, there are around 450,000 reported cases, with the morbidity rate around 685 per 100,000 population. Okay, so this is the data from food poisoning from R506, and the trend is actually similar to the acute diarrhea I mentioned before. In 2021, there are around 50,000 reported cases with the morbidity rate of 76 per 100,000 population. So this table demonstrates a reported number of cases, morbidity rate, and mortality rate from R506 disease surveillance in 2019. And as you can see, in each year, in this year, there are around 1 million reported cases with acute diarrhea, accounted for about 1,600 per 100,000 population, with 9 reported deaths, and also 12 cholera cases been reported in this year as well, with 1 death. And we also found a high number of cases with mushroom poisoning report each year, which in 2019 is about 1,500 cases report, and also dysentery, about almost 3,000 cases a year. So this is the data from food poisoning outbreak from the event-based surveillance I mentioned earlier, back in 2019 until this year. There are around 50 to 60 events reporting during 2019 and 2020, with around 2,500 to 2,000 OPD cases reports a year, and also 200 to 400 IPD cases annually. Although in 2021, we received only 22 events report to the database. And the data from these 3 years, you can see that educational setting, which is school, were responsible for the highest number of events, cases of food poisoning outbreaks, followed by household setting, and in some year, especially this year, is the prison, and also from religious setting, which is temple. And the example of suspected food from the investigation reports, including horseshoe crab egg, homemade new whiskey, herbal whiskey, fermented fish in salad, and also uncooked seafood, shellfish, and also soup with boiled egg and rice with boiled chicken with blood curd also have been reported as the suspected food that caused food poisoning outbreaks in the country. And also other type of ready-to-eat meal as well. And this is the output from the Sentinel laboratory surveillance from the year 2019 to 2020. This bar graph illustrates monthly number of positive samples and the positivity rates of viral pathogen from network hospital. As you can see, the positivity rate for viral pathogens seems to peak during winter season. And in the year 2019, we noticed higher positivity rates than subsequent years. However, this could be impacted by the number of samples submitted for testing as well, because you can see that from the year 2019 to 2021, there is the number of samples submitted to the laboratory for testing in lower. In summary, gastrointestinal infection or the foodborne illness still represent problem in Thailand due to the improper sanitation and hygiene. And gastrointestinal infection or foodborne illness can be caused, as we know, can be caused by several microorganisms. And linking the cause of illness to the source of infection depends on several factors, including the availability of food products for testing at the time of disease investigation, the availability of the test, testing methodology, and interpretation of results, and also to apply the advanced laboratory technique, for example, whole genome sequencing that can be used to compare the microorganisms found from samples from patients and the suspect food source in a timely manner in resource limiting settings is challenging. And most importantly, it's the coordination among stakeholders with multi-agency that needs to have, and that requires a lot of coordination among multi-agency, and also the hospital case-based reporting and event-based surveillance, all the way to monitor gastrointestinal infection or foodborne illness, but also represent a burden to the staff that up until now will have to work on COVID-19, and the event-based surveillance aims for rapid communication among stakeholders, although they require the consistency in reporting, verification of information, and also interpretation of the laboratory results. Without further ado, I would like to end my presentation, and thank you for your patience and listening to my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sutida. It was a very, very interesting presentation in which we were able to learn more on the flow of information at the different levels for foodborne disease surveillance in Thailand. Also, how you categorize the foodborne disease surveillance and how the reporting systems work. And finally, to look at the trends. I think as you highlighted at the end of your presentation, this multi-sectorial collaboration is indeed, it poses indeed some it could pose some difficulties. It's indeed very much needed to make this whole system work. And it's also, now that we've heard from Republic of Korea and Thailand, of course, very interesting and maybe even expected to see how this align with the international trends that we also see here at INFOSAN with regards to foodborne diseases. So thank you very much again, Dr. Sutida. We really appreciate your support and support from authorities in Thailand. Now we're going to move to the next speaker on the national experience from Philippines. We'll hear from Dr. Pilar Marilyn Payaguyana, who's the director of the Center for Food Regulation and Research at the Food and Drug Administration in the Philippines. So, Dr. Pilar, if you're there, please don't hesitate to unmute yourself and proceed sharing your screen. I believe we were not able to locate her in the list, so perhaps there's some issues. Okay, well, if it seems that maybe she's not in the call, let's see, but maybe we can jump into the panel discussion, and if she's here later, then she can do her presentation. And in the meantime, we give time and space for the panel discussion to take place from the other member states that will discuss a bit more on the role of INFOSAN in foodborne disease surveillance. And now we will have the opportunity to hear the perspectives from 3 different member states. This would be New Zealand, Bhutan, and Japan, who will let us know a bit more on how they see this link with foodborne disease surveillance and INFOSAN. And for this, I would like to first thank all the participants that will be helping us with this panel discussion. And to start, I would like to call Ms. Jenny Bishop from New Zealand, the Ministry for Primary Industries, who is also the emergency contact point in New Zealand, for her to provide some insights on these on behalf of authorities in New Zealand. So Jenny, the floor is yours, and thank you once again for your support.
Thank you, Raul, and it's a real pleasure to be here today. Thanks to FAO and WHO and the INFOSAN team for inviting me, and of course colleagues in the Ministry of Food and Drug Safety there in the Republic of Korea. So thank you again for having me, and it's been a really great session I've been listening into, so really great presentations and discussion. So in terms of some thoughts about foodborne illness surveillance and how it works with INFOSAN. Having been a member of INFOSAN for quite some time and seeing INFOSAN develop over the years, and certainly based on the discussions we've had both in Asia, and I know that strengthening INFOSAN in Asia has been a priority for the region, and acknowledge the great support that's been seen in the region towards all the forums there, as well as global meetings as well. And so I guess, in terms of when I was asked to input into this panel, I reflected on those discussions that we've had in groups in both regional and global levels, but also how we use INFOSAN here in New Zealand, and how we believe that it adds to our foodborne disease surveillance and management here. So I can see a two-way process really. First of all, it's outward looking. We can utilize INFOSAN as a way of identifying outbreaks overseas, and we do that as part of our daily routine. And as many of you would also have these systems in place in your national systems, we undertake a daily monitoring of the INFOSAN community website, and also media, and also a lot of your websites, trying to identify outbreak situations, and that, or also food products that have pathogens present. So when we identify those different scenarios, we then determine whether or not that product has come to New Zealand, or if we're likely to have a reasonable number of travellers to countries where an outbreak situation is underway. Obviously, with the current COVID environment, the travelling angle is not really part of a consideration at the moment, but certainly importation of product means that we're constantly looking at issues overseas and seeing how they may apply here in New Zealand. So that's about the identification of outbreaks and how it may apply in New Zealand. And it's also identifying food products that may have a pathogen present that may cause foodborne disease here in New Zealand. So should that occur, if we identify a food that has been imported into New Zealand and has a pathogen present, or if that food is associated with an outbreak overseas, we will do a heads up or a notification to our colleagues in the Ministry of Health and also our public health laboratory. This means that they can be identifying associated cases here in New Zealand, and we can start determining their exposure and managing the food. So that would result in a food recall type situation. I think the other part of it as well is, I've talked about the outbreaks overseas and also the presence of pathogens in a food product. The other part of that is also identifying an unusual situation. So if there's an unusual pathogen present, that's obviously an emerging issue. If it's unusual, if it's a food hazard combination that has not been seen before, then obviously that is of interest to us and something that we should be considering in the New Zealand context to see if it's likely to occur here. So that was the outward looking, and then we're also looking internally here in New Zealand. So obviously when we are seeing an increase or a cluster of certain cases, one of our first actions is, obviously we're managing it here in New Zealand, but very early into the piece, we look to share that information internationally via INFOSAN. And that is because, we do import a lot of food products, and we're of a view that if we have a foodborne illness outbreak here, we need to work out quickly if others are seeing an increase in cases as well, and that will help us identify a potential food source. So you'll often see on the INFOSAN community website a communication from us explaining we've had an increase, or we've got a cluster of cases. Is anyone else seeing this? Can you share some information? We had a specific type of salmonella earlier this year, and we certainly shared that information via the INFOSAN community website to see if anyone else is seeing it. I think that process is going to come in more into play as we use sequence information, whole genome sequencing from our cases and how that may apply around the world. So I think because of that sequence fingerprint, it's something else that we'll be able to share with everyone across the world and identify if there's anything in common. We've had a couple of really great examples on that. A lot of you will be aware of, we managed a hepatitis A outbreak associated with imported frozen berries. During that outbreak, we certainly shared originally the increase and asked for information, but we also then shared the sequence. And through us sharing that sequence via the INFOSAN community website, we were able to identify cases in other countries. It was a bit of a surprise action for us because obviously our public health laboratory linking into various databases around the world, and we didn't want to duplicate effort, but we decided to share it just in case we were able to find new information, and we did. And that was really an eye-opener for me, and that while there are global databases for sequence sharing, it's not often uploaded from countries in real time. And so therefore, they may be doing batch uploading. So every few months, sequences may be uploaded, and that's the only way to access that information. So while on one hand you might feel like it's a duplication, I would really recommend utilising INFOSAN because it is real time in terms of people checking in regularly and looking for this information and understanding the urgency behind the requests. We have had another example recently just this year, and that's where we were sharing sequence information. And, you know, again, it was able to, because of whole genome sequencing, you know, we can look at the genomic branches and see where sequences, while they may not be exactly the same, we can see where the most similar sequences are coming from, and through INFOSAN we can make contact with those countries to see if they have any more information on the food supply, so we can look for potential areas of where the source may come from. So I think it's really important that you know, that INFOSAN really is a two-way process. You know, we're looking at all the information available and provided by all the other countries and learning from it and working to see if it applies in New Zealand and trying to act, you know, promptly. And that information means that we can identify an outbreak much quicker than we may have done so in the past. But in return, because of all that information we're receiving, we're also very mindful that we want to put information into the system. And that means, you know, quickly sharing information about an outbreak we're seeing here in New Zealand that may have linkages, and also ensuring that we're sharing anything unusual here in New Zealand. I think the other part of INFOSAN in terms of how it's helping with foodborne disease surveillance, you know, it is obviously learning from other countries, and, you know, it's been a great session so far hearing about how other countries are involved in foodborne disease surveillance. And as we all sort of grapple with the limited information that we sometimes have as an individual country, you know, looking at other countries' data can build a stronger picture for each country as well. I think the last point I'd just like to make in my short time is noting that, you know, we do have obligations under the international health regulations, and utilising INFOSAN to meet those obligations is really important. And those two actions that I've talked about, you know, outward looking, receiving information from you all, and that means you're meeting your IHR obligations. But then we are also meeting our IHR obligations by ensuring that we're sharing information on any outbreaks that may have implications for any other country, and also sharing information that is unusual, and that is very clear under those obligations, and that's something that we treat very seriously and keen to make sure that we do our bit to help everyone, as we are getting great information from all of you in your countries. So thank you again for inviting me to share a few thoughts on the topic, and I look forward to hearing the additional panel's inputs as well. Thanks, Raul.
Thank you very much, Jenny, for these great insights on how these two topics link together. It's indeed, we all certainly agree with what you just described in how we can use INFOSAN to learn from other countries, to of course identify, monitor, and verify information, as well as to gain better understanding on emerging issues or unusual situations that perhaps we at some point don't have all the information, but maybe other countries do. So it's indeed great the way you've presented this let's say collaboration between INFOSAN and foodborne disease surveillance colleagues in different countries, and especially in New Zealand. So thank you again very much, Jenny, and hope it's not very late over there, though it's a bit late. Then sorry?
It's worth staying up late for, Raul, so thank you.
Thank you, Jenny, thank you. I think we can move then to our next speaker from Bhutan, who will be Dr. Sitar Torji, Director of Kesar Gyalpo University of Medical Science, and who will be also providing some insights about INFOSAN and foodborne disease surveillance from the Bhutanese perspective. So thank you very much, Dr. Sitar, and the floor is yours.
Hello, greetings to everyone from Bhutan. I hope you're able to see my slide. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, and then hear me clearly?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm presenting this topic on a panel discussion on behalf of the Emergency Contact Point of Bhutan. The contact point focal is Ms. Kembida from BAFRA, Bhutan Agriculture and Food Regulatory Authority. So in this presentation, I made a very brief presentation. I'll cover on the little bit background on the Food Safety Agency in Bhutan, and then highlight on the foodborne disease surveillance that is currently implemented, and also bringing into some perspective from One Health angle and how this INFOSAN, IHR, and foodborne disease surveillance is connected in terms of in the Bhutan's context, and then the role of INFOSAN for foodborne disease surveillance at national, international, regional level, and then some specific challenges. So coming to Bhutan, BAFRA is a competent food safety authority in Bhutan. And in Bhutan, we have taken an integrated approach to managing animal health, plant health of animal and plant biosecurity, and food safety under us by bringing all these three components into single agency model since 2000. So basically we have adopted this integrated, or what we say is a One Health approach to biosecurity, food safety. And BAFRA has also been subsequently designated as a competent authority for enforcing the National Biosafety Framework. And those of you who are not aware of Bhutan, I think this integration fits into our context because it's a very small country. The HR are very limited, and therefore it is very cost efficient and easy to manage under single agency. And that is a model we have taken early on from 2000. And then having established BAFRA, I think the food safety actually formally came into enforcement or under regulation since 2003. Before that, we didn't have any food safety agency in Bhutan. So BAFRA is also responsible for enforcing food safety regulation for domestic, for import, export, all together, unlike in many other countries where export is dealt by another agency, import is dealt by another different agency, and then domestic regulation or enforcement is done by other agency. And many countries having difficulty in bringing all these agencies together in terms of information sharing, also like coordinating when there are outbreaks and all. So there are different challenges, but in Bhutan, this has been relatively easy to coordinate for the fact that it is brought under single agency. And then we closely liaise with human public health laboratory and other sectors. So BAFRA has a national food testing lab and also microsatellite lab at the official border entry points. And as I've highlighted, BAFRA, the emergency contact point for INFOSAN is located in BAFRA. So this is the setup. If you look into this, the emergency contact point BAFRA, and there are focal points from the Ministry of Health, the Department of Public Health, and who is also again linked to the IHR component of the health. And then we have a focal point from Department of Livestock, focal point from Department of Trade. So this is again bringing in the multi-sectoral approach towards food safety and information sharing, and from the perspective of compliance to INFOSAN obligation. Now let me touch briefly on the foodborne disease surveillance system. I'm bringing this from the perspective of the public health. We have a NEWARIS, that is a National Early Warning and Alert Response System. And this system is a surveillance system for reporting notifiable diseases. It is managed by the Royal Center for Disease Control of Ministry of Health. It is a web-based indicator and event-based surveillance system. So this is a quite comprehensive And this web-based system has an email notification to all stakeholders. So it's fairly advanced. Anybody, right from ministers to secretaries of the Ministry of Health to directors and the key focal in the other sectors, as well as like academician like me, can register to this Niwari system, and I will be notified on all disease outbreak, including foodborne diseases. So this is how it is captured. If you look into this flow chart from bottom up, any community health worker or school health coordinator or any health media can report to this Niwari system on any foodborne disease or any notifiable disease or unusual event. And then the Niwari system at RCDC will screen, verify it, and then share the information through email notification. So when it comes to the INFOSAN and all, the RCDC will be notifying the ECP of Bhutan, and then ECP of Bhutan will be notifying the INFOSAN. So this is and as I understand from GAME, so far, Bhutan did not notify even single event, because Bhutan, as you know, is not much export, only very few quantity and limited. And then so far we did not experience any events to be notified by INFOSAN, but I believe ECP is regularly receiving the international events and then sharing within the Bhutan and taking necessary steps. For instance, like during melamine issue and then other issues Bhutan has taken, whenever we receive notification, we check into any imports or products that has come to Bhutan or not, and then verify it and then take necessary action. So this is how in general, the foodborne disease surveillance is captured from the human health point of view. So this is a Niwari system. So it's a website. You can register here and log into the system. And this is an event reporting form. Any individual needs to fill this detailed form, and then it enters the RCDC Niwari system. Then the epidemiologist and that unit will verify this event. And if it is verified, and then once verified, it will be circulated in email notification to all the stakeholders. Coming to food, they also built the foodborne disease surveillance information management system. This is a recent initiative, fairly new, and maybe rolled out in 2018 or 19, just before the COVID outbreak. And this captures more detailed data, including on epidemiological, clinical, and laboratory results on foodborne diseases. And based on that notification, in Bhutan, like if there is a foodborne disease reported and detected by public health, then they inform the BPRO, and BPRO will, again, there is a good already agreed understanding of conducting a joint coordinated outbreak investigation of any foodborne diseases, taking One Health approach, where they do coordinate, they take the samples from the food and test it, and then correlate whether this is a foodborne or from other sources. So this is how they do it. And then there is also an active surveillance component recently initiated, but it's a very infancy stage. Basically, they take monthly 10 samples from the high-risk foods and then screen for pathogen, and it is captured in this FoodSIM model system here. If you look into this, there is a module to capture food production facility, then sample collection, what are the types of samples and all, when the sample is shipped, how it is shipped, then the laboratory test result. And then they generate this is a foodborne disease surveillance dashboard where they generate the report. So this is in brief about the FoodSIM model and as well as Niwari system. Coming to the role of INFOSAN and on foodborne disease surveillance, I think this is a very valuable initiative from WHO and FAO. And this platform acts as an authentic and reliable information source from the international agencies. And is trusted by all government agencies for making any informed decision or to even rule out the fake infodemics like many people now, because everybody is social media savvy, people just make fun and then it becomes a rumor and then it spreads, and many times false things. So the only way to authenticate and convince is through INFOSAN source. So every country and INFOSAN secretariat must ensure that all the countries comply, with the thing, and then they are reporting through this official channel, which will be trusted and informed. So that way, I think this is a key important thing. Even when COVID came, and then there was a rumors going around that corona originated in Wuhan seafood market, then there were countries even banning the seafood. Even in Bhutan, we have taken initiative, and subsequently we need to convince the government that corona spread through food sources is very negligible, and we will not take that extreme measures. So this is how we need to convince, and based on this, I think official having this platform serves a very important value in decision making. The INFOSAN also helps in timely dissemination, which will trigger the member country's response, and then take timely and appropriate interventions, either preventive or even controlling, like taking the recall, withdrawing the food if it is related to that incident, and therefore again take INFOSAN information will serve as a basis for taking any regulatory measures. So these are the major benefits I see. Then other benefits we feel coming through INFOSAN is sharing a good practices on foodborne disease surveillance and response system through networking, which we have seen a couple of examples here: Thailand, Philippines, and then New Zealand, Korea. I think these are very good examples, and other countries can learn. So our request to Secretariat is to make this event rather increase the frequency, but what we call as low dose, high frequency. So make it short, but very important, and scale up this frequency of meeting that would help other countries to learn from others, share the information, good practices, and like that. And this also helps in harmonizing the foodborne disease surveillance and perhaps contribute to estimating global burden of foodborne diseases. So as a member in the global foodborne disease expert group, when we look into and how to estimate accurately the global burden, the data, the accuracy of information is a challenge. And that way, I think INFOSAN can also contribute towards generating the data and to get a more accurate estimate, improve the estimate of global burden of foodborne disease estimation. So these are the benefits, and then strengthening the technical capacity in foodborne disease surveillance, response, and communication, which I will highlight a little bit in the next slide when it comes to specific challenges. So coming to specific challenges, as I understand from our ECP contact point here, she says that these are not a mandatory requirement, unlike the IHR component, and that way it tends to be a little bit sidelined when it comes to, implementation of INFOSAN in a rigorous way. So these are the challenges. Then ECP and FPs all are on a part-time basis, and they have other priorities, and therefore I think non-emergency active information communication have not been able to share with other stakeholders as well as international agencies. But when it comes to emergency foodborne incident, I think this is taken more appropriate actions are taken. Now, main challenge of why INFOSAN is not active is in a developing country like Bhutan is where there is a resource challenge, and then low technical capacity in terms of laboratory testing, associating the public health foodborne disease in human to the incrementing food sources, particularly lack of molecular sequencing and all to really say that it is coming from that food. These are the challenges because of the laboratory technical capacity. As I understand, again, like Food Safety Authority and many people, young professionals are not trained to carry out outbreak investigation, develop the surveillance, and also conducts research in food safety. So research on food safety is almost nil. Then non-optimal compliance to reporting foodborne disease event through Nivaris by clinicians, because most of the foodborne diarrheal disease clinician prescribe antibiotics and it is given, they're okay, so they do not report because they are busy clinicians. So that is a main challenge. Now coming to, before I forget, I think one specific thing that is not coming here, which is related to foodborne and transboundary, is the emergence of antimicrobial resistance. And I strongly believe that food sources are the major contributor at the national and even at the international is a transboundary issue. So we need to capture this. AMR very pay attention, and INFOSAN should support that towards the AMR containment, information sharing, and a regional or global response to it. No adequate data report accurately to INFOSAN because of all the challenges I highlighted. So there is no adequate data being generated and to report accurately to INFOSAN. And this, I believe, will be the situation in many of the LDCs and middle-income countries. No proper or adequate risk-based food import control measures currently implemented in Bhutan. So this is in the challenge. We don't have a proper import control system currently, and we are developing the import risk categorization of food so that we can properly implement the import risk-based food inspection system at the border. Once this is strengthened, then we can look into how many foods from where it is coming, and then do some surveillance system, and we can detect perhaps more foodborne pathogens and events there. No targeted active surveillance to accurately estimate priority foodborne disease. There is no, like, if person comes with diarrhea, there's no proper Salmonella, Campylobacter, E. coli, targeted active surveillance being collected. Or it's all like a passive, or rather that Nivaris system allows as an enhanced passive surveillance. The budgetary constraint is the main problem here, because when we institute the foodborne surveillance, it is relatively costly in terms of person, reagent, laboratory support required, and therefore government currently does not provide that thing, because most of the foodborne disease like heavy metal and all, it's a cumulative long-term, and policymaker, unless it is a dramatic disease like COVID, many people, policymakers from other sectors do not understand the importance of foodborne disease, and particularly the finance ministry, and therefore adequate budgetary support is not given. So these are the specific challenges specifically related to Bhutan, and then I think this may have a relevance to other LDCs also. So these are the few examples sharing from Bhutan's experience. Thank you very much for listening.
Many thanks, Dr. Siddharth Dorji. I think it was also very interesting to hear from the Bhutanese perspective, starting from how INFOSAN promotes this integrated approach called One Health, and how it has been building this in Bhutan. It was also very interesting to learn how you're using it as a source of information, and also how we can use this information not only to react immediately to the emergencies, but also to later advocate, to seek support and to prioritize food safety at the national level. I think it was a great presentation, and I like very much your idea of having a low dose, high frequency sort of input from the INFOSAN Secretariat to keep always the ball rolling and keep everyone motivated and involved in the work that we are doing. So great presentation, thank you very much. We appreciate the support provided by the Bhutanese authorities. And let's move forward then to the next speaker, again on the topic of foodborne disease surveillance and the role of INFOSAN. And we will hear now from Japan. We'll have the opportunity to hear from Manato Ebina from the Office of International Food Safety, the Pharmaceutical Safety and Environmental Health Bureau from the Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare, on the Japanese perspective into this topic that we are discussing today. So Manato, please, the floor is yours, and thank you very much for your support.
Excuse me, I forgot to unmute. Can you see my slides and hear me as well?
Yes, both things working well.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your kind introduction. Greetings from Japan. I am Manato Ibina from the Policy Planning Division for Environmental Health and Food Safety of...
Doctor, can you please make a presentation mode?
Presentation mode, okay.
Since you are using a presentation tool, so...
Sorry about that.
Oh, no, it's okay. I think we can go with this screen. Thank you.
Sorry about this.
No, it's okay. Thank you.
I'll continue with the screen then. Okay, let me start again. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties. I am Manato Ibina from, and thank you very much for giving us this great opportunity today. In this presentation, after briefly explaining food safety policy in Japan, I will explain the flow of food poisoning investigations, as well as the status of food poisoning outbreaks. I can't switch slides. Okay. This is a figure showing Japan's food safety policy. The Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare, MHLW, right here, and it plays a major role in risk management, establishes necessary standards and criteria, and coordinates with each organization. On the right end of the figure, written in pink square right here, quarantine stations confirm whether food meets the standards set by Japanese laws and regulations through prior consultation for imported food and inspection at the time of import. The pink box on the one left is the regional offices of health and welfare. They give approval to organizations that perform inspections based on the law at the time of import. They also conduct on-site inspections of facilities that introduced the HACCP system and were approved by the national government, and issue certificates for foods to be exported. The gray box on the left, local governments such as prefectures are responsible for food safety policy implementation in Japan, and health centers of local governments are also responsible for issuing business permission, providing monitoring and guidance to facilities, and conducting food poisoning investigations, which is today's main topic. Furthermore, the Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry, and Fisheries, which is indicated on the upper left of the slide, is shown in orange box, the MAFF, and the Consumer Affairs Agency, the pink box below, are also the organizations in charge of risk management. And the Food Safety Commission of Japan, the red box on the top of the slide, has been established as an organization in charge of risk assessment. This is today's main topic, food poisoning investigation. It shows the general flow of investigation in 4 steps. First, in step 1, the Food Sanitation Act stipulates that a physician who found a patient with food poisoning or suspected food poisoning should notify the nearest health center within 24 hours. The specific notification items are the name and address of the physician, the name, address, and age of the patient, the cause of food poisoning, the date and time of symptom onset, and the date of diagnosis or autopsy. I would like to note here that as it is not sufficient to rely solely on the notification by only physicians for the detection of food poisoning, we have established an investigation system where we receive a wide range of reports from those other than physicians, such as food business operators and consumers, and respond to the content reported by them. The next is step 2. Health center officials contacted by the physician will investigate the patients on the following 3 points. First point is when, where, and what kind of food the patient consumed. A survey of food and liquid consumed by the patient is conducted for about 2 weeks from the date of symptom onset. The second point is what kind of symptoms the patient displayed and when, whether there is any family member or colleague who has similar symptoms. The third point is whether the patients ate together with other people. At this step, we also ask patients to provide samples such as stool and vomit. Although it is not included in the slide, in parallel with the patient survey, if the patient was at a restaurant, we check the status of food handling and hygiene management at the facility and request the cooks to provide a sample of their stool. If the patient has any leftover food, we keep it as a sample and we conduct wipe inspection of kitchen knives and cutting boards used at the facility. On step 3, the results of survey and tests performed in step 2 are analyzed, specifically on the following 3 points. First point is if there are multiple patients and whether there are any common symptoms and diet. The second point is what kind of microorganisms are detected from fecal samples, leftover food of the patient, and wiped samples. And the third point is whether the pathogenicity of the detected microorganisms and the onset time shows relevance. We analyzed these points to identify the facility and food that caused poisoning, as well as disease agents. On step 4, in the case where the facility that caused poisoning is identified, for example, if it was a restaurant, suspension or prohibition of service is ordered for the necessary period to prevent recurrence. During that time, various measures are taken to prevent recurrence, such as guidance from a health center, employee education, cleaning and disinfection of the facility, and disposal of food ingredients that cause poisoning. Food poisoning incidents handled at a health center are reported to the Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare, the MHLW, in accordance with the Food Sanitation Act. The MHLW compiles and publishes these results, conducts analysis with experts, and considers measures to prevent the occurrence of food poisoning. Regarding the role of INFOSAN in this foe, if a serious outbreak was found to be happening in step 2, and the product which caused the outbreak identified by step 3 was exported to other countries, the MHLW will immediately notify the INFOSAN Secretariat the information about the outbreak, including the specific item that caused the food poisoning, the number of cases of illnesses, to where the product was exported to, so that the member countries which the product of concern was distributed could take actions in a timely manner. If Japan was notified from the INFOSAN that the food product imported to Japan caused food poisoning in the exporting country, the MHLW will immediately contact the importer to conduct a product recall to avoid further distribution and investigate if there were any cases of illnesses by consuming the product. The result of the investigation will be reported as soon as possible to the INFOSAN Secretariat. Okay, next slide. Here. From here, I will explain the status of food poisoning outbreaks in Japan. The following is a table and graph showing the number of food poisoning incidents and patients. The upper table shows the number of incidents, the number of patients, and the number of deaths from 2018 to 2020, respectively. In the past 3 years, the average number of incidents has been around 1,000 cases, and the number of patients has been about 15,000 people. This graph shows the change in the number of food poisoning incidents by each disease agents from 2003 to 2020. Regarding food poisoning caused by the bacteria of the genus Salmonella, which is shown in blue line right here, now the incidents of food poisoning have decreased by making mandatory labeling of the freshness date on shelled eggs and setting standards such as preservation standards for egg liquid in 1998. Regarding the green line, V. parahemolyticus, right here, I guess, the incidence of food poisoning have decreased by implementing measures in 2001, such as setting standards for labeling, processing, preservation, and others, which include standards for fresh fish and shellfish for raw consumption. By contrast, Campylobacter and norovirus, which is shown in orange and dark blue, and respectively, infections have not yet decreased even though various measures have been taken. In addition, anisakis cases have been increasing year by year, but most of them are food poisoning incidents with one patient only. This concludes my explanation. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Anato, for this presentation. It was also great to learn more on how these type of situations are handled in Japan from the beginning and up to notification from INFOSAN. It certainly provides a great background on how countries, for those that are still to set such a plan, can start operating, and yeah, it really gives a good example on how this can work. So we thank you very much for this great presentation, and thank all the Japanese authorities for the work so far and also the support provided. I think with this we can move into the next item on the agenda, which, let me just share my screen, is the closing remarks. 1 second, just open this one. Okay, very good. And for this, as I said, we are going to hear from the Republic of Korea, who are co-hosting this meeting. Then we will hear from FAO, and then we will hear from the INFOSAN Secretariat to just provide some words. So I would like to start with the Republic of Korea then, and would welcome Hyejin Paik, Director General of the Consumer Risk Prevention Bureau, the Ministry of Food and Drug Safety, MFDS, in the Republic of Korea, to kindly provide the closing remarks on behalf of the Republic of Korea authorities. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank very much once again, authorities in the Republic of Korea for all the support provided on the development of this meeting. So the floor is yours, and thank you very much.
Thank you, moderator. Good morning, afternoon, and evening. As introduced, I am Hyejin Paik, Director General of the Consumer Risk Prevention Bureau in the Ministry of Food and Drug Safety. We are now closing the 7th INFOSAN in Asia meeting that started yesterday. It's been a long day, isn't it? 16 countries joined the meeting, and I would like to thank all of you for being with us despite your busy schedules. My appreciation goes to all the participants, including presenters and discussants from all overseas, as well as those from the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs, and National Food Safety Information Service, who participated from Korea. I also would like to express my appreciation to everyone at home and abroad who helped us to successfully organize and run this virtual event. My special thanks go to the INFOSAN Secretariat, Raul Garcia, who moderated the entire sessions and who helped us make presentations and discussions very freely and pleasantly. It was a very nice and smooth one. Everybody seems to agree the importance of exchanging food safety information to jointly respond to food crisis at a regional and an international level. Everybody also seems to agree the importance of INFOSAN's role in terms of fast and detailed information sharing and collaboration. In this regard, it is very meaningful that we have discussed a member's guide on how to cope with the food safety risks following collective analysis. And I think it is an important step forward for ensuring food safety in Asia. We have also had the opportunity to discuss the policies that are implemented regarding foodborne diseases from countries including South Korea, Thailand, New Zealand, Bhutan, and Japan. We have learned that each country has a different policies and systems due to its different socioeconomic systems, cultures, and population size, and so on. But efforts to respond to foodborne disease as fast as possible seem very common. So this means that we have some many things to learn from each other and collaborate together. Taken together, I believe the speeches, presentations, and opinions shared during the meeting will serve as a stepping stone to enhance rapid information sharing for timely and appropriate responses to food safety issues. More collaboration, coordination, and communications are needed. I think first step to do so is maybe perhaps to utilize this INFOSAN communication website as much as we can. I would like to ask for your continued support, and I hope COVID-19 will slow down next year so that we can see you all at a face-to-face meeting. I look forward to pooling our wisdom by meeting in Korea or another country in Asia and moving toward a safer Asia. There is less than a month remaining till 2022. I wish you all the best and much happiness as we approach the new year. Thank you very much. 감사합니다.
Thank you very much, Director General Jin-Baek. It was an impeccable closing remarks, and thanks for your kind words. We also wish all the best for the coming year. And before I forget saying this is why I say it right now. And thank you very much again for all the support provided for the organization and the development of this meeting. It's been great working with you. I would like then to invite our colleague Eleonora Dupuy for some closing remarks from FAO.
Thanks much, Raul, for this possibility to address distinguished participants with closing remarks from FAO. First of all, I would like to thank the Ministry of Food and Drug Safety of the Republic of Korea for co-hosting and co-organizing this regional event. And also, I would like to thank the INFOSAN emergency contact points and focal points from 16 countries who attended this event. I would like also to thank colleagues at INFOSAN Secretariat at WHO, Raul, Rachel, Francisco, for the joint work, and also special thanks to interpreters. I would like to mention that this regional meeting was very useful, so that we had the opportunity to provide a platform for countries to exchange their good practices in INFOSAN operation, and also to hear the still existing challenges and barriers which have to be addressed in order to be more effective and in communication and interaction with INFOSAN. The shared experience on foodborne disease surveillance by the Republic of Korea, Thailand, Bhutan, Japan, New Zealand are very much appreciated, and this definitely presents also a good, let's say, background material for some further trainings or workshops on the INFOSAN platform. And also, I would like to address also special thanks for all provided inputs to the draft strategy and members guide for INFOSAN Asia, which we well noted and will present a good basis to enrich and further develop a good and operational guide for the region. Thanks to all, and all the best in the new coming year, with much less foodborne incidents at national and international level. Thank you, and over.
Thank you very much, Eleonora, for these remarks. Then just to close the meeting, on behalf of the World Health Organization, I would like to thank everyone, all participants, INFOSAN members that attended this meeting. As it's been said, we know that December is always a tough month for meetings, so we do appreciate that you made some time for us to discuss and have this great and fruitful meeting that will help us to move forward. I would also like to thank once again all the speakers that provided with their insights today, provided us with some insights today about the different topics that were covered. Thanks for your time in preparing these slides. It was, I think, a great example, and we were able to learn more on what other countries are doing to address food safety issues and inspire us to move forward with the work that we are doing. Finally, I would also like to join my colleague Eleonora from FAO in thanking the co-host, the Republic of Korea authorities, apologies, for all the support provided for the organization of this meeting and the development of the meeting. I think it's been great organized. I would really like to thank everyone for all the work that's been done. We do hope that all the results of the discussions that we had today can serve as an inspiration for further reflection, and not only to stay there in reflection, but also for us to take action and try to move forward with this great initiative that we've presented today, which is the draft, the strategic plan and members guide for Asia. I think this is a great way to move forward and to keep also supporting the work that's done by us, the INFOSAN Secretariat, with, of course, all the support from member states, and that we always appreciate having. So I would just like to finalize by saying that we should all let's work together for safe food that's distributed all around the globe, and in particular in Asia. Finally, and because I forgot, I would also like to thank our colleagues at the regional office in the Western Pacific and also in Southeast Asia for all the support provided, both with the organization of the meeting, the development of the meeting, and also with the preparation of the strategic plan and members guide for Asia. It's also very much appreciated. So I cannot say thanks more to everyone, but really thanks to everyone. Finally, just to close, some next steps, following final steps. We, as I said, are going to finalize the strategic plan, the members guide. We are going to share it with you for further information. So please expect to hear from us soon. We are going to share all the materials from the meeting on the INFOSAN community website and also with an email, as we did yesterday. And finally, we are going to also be following up on some key actions that we would like to seek from member states on how they can start implementing this strategic plan for the coming year, which is 2022. With that being said, I would like to say thank you again, wishing you all the best for the coming year and hoping to see you again and be in touch very soon. So thank you everyone. Thanks to the Republic of Korea, thanks to our colleagues, and we wish you all the best. Thank you.